All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're jumping right into one of the biggest and, honestly, most personal mysteries there is, consciousness itself. I mean, where does your inner world actually come from? To figure that out, we're going to open up the case file on what might just be science's greatest puzzle.
So let's treat this like a real detective story, okay? Our mission is to track down the prime suspects, the leading theories that try to explain how that 3-pound lump of matter between your ears can create the feeling of being you.
Before we get into any of the wild theories, let's start with the one piece of evidence every single one of us has. Just take a second and ask yourself, in this whole entire universe, what's the one thing you know, I mean really know for sure, is real? It's this, right? It has to be. Your own conscious experience. The feeling of the chair you're sitting on, the specific color you're seeing on the screen, the sound of my voice. That rich, private inner movie that's playing in your head right now, that's the very thing we're investigating. It's our scene of the crime, and it's our biggest clue.
And you know what? This is exactly what has scientists and philosophers totally stumped. This puzzle is so big, it even has a name: the hard problem of consciousness. It all boils down to this. We can map out all the wiring in the brain, watch the neurons fire, but how do those physical sparks and chemicals create the feeling of seeing the color red or tasting a lemon? That giant leap from brain activity to actual experience, that's what they call the explanatory gap. So, to try and bridge that gap, our investigators have basically split into two major camps, and they're following two completely different lines of inquiry. The big question is consciousness something the brain builds from scratch, or is it something the brain just tunes into? And this brings us to our two main schools of thought. On one side, you have physicalism. The idea here is that consciousness is an inside job. It just sort of bubbles up from all the incredibly complex stuff happening inside the brain. But then the other camp argues the complete opposite. They say consciousness is more like an outside force, that it's a basic ingredient of the universe itself, like gravity or time. And our brains just act like receivers. The physicalists have a really great analogy for this. Think about water. A single molecule of H2O isn't wet. It can't be. But you get a whole bunch of them together, and suddenly you get this brand new property, wetness, or liquidity. The theory goes that consciousness is just like that. One neuron isn't conscious, but you wire billions of them together in the right way, and this new property of awareness just emerges. Okay, but now let's look at a truly wild idea from the other side. It's called pansychism. And get this, it suggests that consciousness doesn't emerge from complexity at all. Instead, it's a fundamental feature of all matter. In this view, even a single electron has some tiny, unimaginably simple spark of experience. So brains don't create consciousness. They just bundle it together into the complex awareness we know. And the appeal of this idea, it totally sidesteps the hard problem, because it says consciousness was never created to begin with. It's always been part of the furniture of the universe. So that's the big picture philosophy. But let's zoom in now and get our hands dirty. We're going to look at the prime neurological suspects, the actual scientific theories trying to crack the brain's secret code. First up, we have a major contender called global workspace theory. And the analogy here is just perfect. Think of your brain like a giant theater. Most of the work, all the calculations, the processing, it's all happening backstage, totally unconscious. But when a piece of information is really important, it gets pushed out onto the main stage and hit with a spotlight. That spotlight is the global workspace, and anything in it becomes conscious, broadcast to every other system in your brain. So, here's how that works. Your brain is getting flooded with sensory information all the time, right? Well, it gets processed in different local areas, unconsciously. Then, a winner gets chosen, the most important bit of info, and it's broadcast everywhere. That globally available information is what we experience as our stream of consciousness. And the really cool thing about this theory is it's testable. We can actually look for that broadcast signal in the brain. Okay, our next suspect is a bit more, well, abstract. It's called integrated information theory, or IIT. This one argues that consciousness is a specific type of information. A system becomes conscious when it's two things at once, incredibly complex with tons of different states, but also perfectly unified or integrated. You can't break it down into smaller, independent parts without destroying the whole thing. It's the ultimate example of the whole being way, way more than the sum of its parts.
And believe me, the list of suspects just keeps on going. Some theories say the key is in the feedback loops between different brain areas.
Others, known as higher order theories, say you only become conscious of something when you have a thought about that thing. Kind of meta, right? Some people are even looking for an atom of awareness in the behavior of a single synapse. But here's the thing. After looking at all these amazing models of information processing, we keep coming back to that hard problem. Can a global workspace or integrated information ever really explain the raw feeling of seeing red, the actual subjective ouch of stubbing your toe? For many, the answer is still no. And that deep sense of doubt has pushed some investigators to a very, very strange and controversial place. So let's talk about the big plot twist in this investigation: quantum mechanics. Yeah. Some scientists are convinced that the deep strangeness of consciousness can only be explained by the deep strangeness of the quantum world. They're saying it's not a computer-like process at all. The most well-known of these is the Orch OR theory. Now, this one gets incredibly specific. It proposes that consciousness literally arises from quantum events happening inside these tiny, tiny protein tubes in our neurons called microtubules. They're not just simple on-off switches. According to this theory, they're actual quantum processors. Now, the implication here is just profound. If Orch OR theory is right, then your consciousness isn't something your brain computes, like a laptop runs a program. It's a non-algorithmic process. It's a kind of quantum vibration that connects your personal experience directly to the fundamental physics of the universe. It is a bold and, yes, highly debated clue in our case. So, after all of that, where does this investigation stand? Well, the simple truth is, the case is still wide open. We've got compelling clues, we have some really powerful theories, but we don't have a smoking gun. No single suspect has been proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So, to quickly recap the state of play, our evidence really points in three main directions. You've got the physicalists saying consciousness is built by brain complexity, with things like global workspace theory. Then you've got the fundamentalist camp with ideas like pansychism, saying it's just a basic part of reality. And finally, you have the quantum crew with theories like Orch OR, arguing we need a whole new kind of physics to solve this thing. At the end of the day, this isn't just another scientific puzzle. The quest to understand consciousness is one of the greatest adventures we're on. It's forcing us to push right to the absolute edge of what we know about our brains, about physics, and about the nature of reality itself. And all of this leaves us with one final massive question to think about. As we close the case file for today, just consider this. If the physicalists are right, if consciousness is just an incredibly complex form of information processing, what does that mean for AI? Could we one day build a machine that's so complex that it doesn't just say it feels joy, but it actually truly feels it? The answer to that probably depends on which one of our suspects turns out to be telling the truth.